Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast. It is the final episode of Season 6. The year 2025 is rapidly coming to a close here. And for the longtime followers of the podcast, you know that at the end of each season, I like to do just kind of a solo version of the podcast and do just a recap for the season, just to kind of make it fun, share some fun information. It's always a great time for me because I enjoy reflecting back on the year. I go back and I remind myself of the guests that I've had, where they come from, all sorts of fun things. So just to kind of get us started a little bit, I wanted to share with you the statistics for this year. Now, I know the statistics bore some people. That's okay. We're not talking a long list here. I just thought I would share with you that we had 38 guests from all over the world in Season 6 alone. Specifically, we had 15 different states within the United States that were represented. Plus, we had some guests from England and one other guest from Singapore. So this truly is a worldwide podcast, and we have guests and experts from all over who share really unique and insightful, impactful question or answers to the questions that we ask. And once in a while, I get asked, Shawn, what about this format? It's a lot shorter. You just ask the same 5 questions. Is that boring? I hope it's not boring. It's not intended to be boring, but the idea is very simple. Everyone has a different perspective, and we have different ideas on how to address certain aspects of leadership. Some of the responses that we've had over this season, and all the seasons for that matter, may or may not resonate with you, and others may resonate and may not resonate with you. But that's the whole point, is to find those little nuggets of helpful information that will help you in your leadership journey. That's the whole point. That's why we keep it a little bit shorter, to give you 15 minutes approximately of good insights from experienced leaders all over the world that can share with you their experience and what to do and maybe some things not to do. So we've had a lot of fun. We've learned a lot. And now the question is, what are we going to apply in our leadership journey? So I hope that you are really considering the 5 questions that we talked about, and we'll recap those here in just a second. But more than anything, I hope that as you're following the podcast, as you're listening to all of these great leaders from all over the world share their insights and be so generous with their time and their experience, that you'll take something from it and that you'll actually try to implement it in your leadership experience, your leadership journey with the teams that you're leading right now, even if that team is simply your spouse or your kids or the people in your neighborhood or church or whatever it may be. Find some way to take a principle that you're learning about and apply it. That's how we grow. That's how we get better. And I'm sure that you know that, but it's worth repeating at this point. One of the big accomplishments from this year, and I hope you don't mind if I just toot my own horn here for just a second, but I wanted to share, many of you have probably heard already, but over the first 5 seasons, this is season 6 that we're wrapping up, but over the first 5 seasons, there were so many good things that came out of all of those guests' comments. I decided to put them together into a book, and the book is called Rapid Fire Leadership. It's available. You can go to rapidfireleadership.com. You can also go to amazon.com and purchase the book, and then if nothing else, catch you up on the first 5 seasons and some great insights. We couldn't get all 400 plus guests that I've had on crammed into the book, but we did grab those that I felt were especially meaningful and aligned well with how I approach leadership and what I recommend to my clients. So we compiled them into the book. So you may want to check that out. But that was a big accomplishment this past year that I wanted to re-share with the audience, and appreciate your opportunity to go and go buy that. It will help you in your journey to continue to be a better leader and to be more confident in how you are leading people and really bringing the team together and turning that team into a high-performing team. So check out that book, rapidfireleadership.com, or you can find it on Amazon. Okay, so let's review this past year, the questions that I asked all the guests. I started by talking about what I refer to as an energy lull, because it does happen where you're working with a team and just kind of fall into a little bit of a lull. The energy goes down. Maybe they're not quite as excited. You sense a lack of enthusiasm. That can be brought on by any number of things. It could be the projects that you're currently working on. It could be the time of year. Maybe it's just a slower time. It could be that there's some tension within the team or maybe the company. It could be that there are external factors. Maybe there are some community issues going on. Maybe there's been a recent challenge that's hit you or your country or even the whole world. We had a pandemic a few years ago. There can be a lot of reasons why energy will dip. I support all of those guests who commented that the first thing you need to do is try to identify why. That's the most important thing, is to identify why are we experiencing a lull. I encourage leaders to also talk with their teams. Do a little gut check with them. Simply ask them, just bring them together. It's very simple. And just ask them, are you feeling the lull in our energy or is it just me? And allow them the opportunity to share in an open, safe place, meaning psychologically safe, so that they can share their input on what might be causing that lull. And then work together as a team to really try to address what can we do to bring some energy back into it. I also respect, we had a handful of guests that said one thing that you can do to alleviate that is to reintroduce and re-inject some fun into what you're doing. And there's a lot of really productive ways to have fun. We're not just saying that you necessarily have to go off-site or meet together somewhere and have a fun afternoon. You can do that. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But there are some really productive activities that you can do that will help bring the group together, kind of break up the monotony of the day-to-day routines that you might do and just kind of get stuck doing. And that'll help bring you together and kind of lighten it up a little bit. Now, if you're dealing with a little bit heavier type things, maybe there's some tension or whatnot, that definitely needs the attention of you, the leader. You need to address that. That's where you need to kind of take the bull by the horns and say, okay, what do we need to do to solve this? If there's some conflict between you and another member of the team, or if it's between other members of the team and you're just kind of refereeing that situation or mediating it, that's where you do need to take initiative and get that addressed. Otherwise, it can fester and it can turn into a bigger and bigger problem that you do not want in your team or in your company. So make sure that you identify which of these kinds of lulls are addressed by the group and which ones you need to address. So start there and be able to address more about how you can tackle things. And of course, if you run into a problem, you're just not quite sure what to handle, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to provide some guidance on that. But I'm confident that if you'll simply follow those two things, identify what is causing the lull, and then determine whether you need to address it or the team can work together to address it, that's going to go a long way. The second question I asked the guests, how do you promote learning in your company or in the team? I really enjoyed this question. And the main reason why I like this so much is I'm such a proponent of learning. I believe that we should never stop learning. Keep reading, keep listening to podcasts, keep having conversations and discussions with others so that we are constantly in a mode of what can we learn and how can we apply new information to what we're working on. The world is moving at a much faster pace than ever before, and I have a feeling it's only going to continue. And those that stay up to speed and will learn and continue to learn about topics, about their jobs and their roles, about each other, the people that they work with, their coworkers, their boss. You, as the leader, how can you learn more about the people on your team? So there's a lot of different ways that we can learn. The key is to never stop learning. And there were a lot of great suggestions. I remember several of our guests emphasizing creating a structured plan and giving the employees or the team members time to explore whatever topics they wanted to. Some guests advocated for any kind of learning. Other guests advocated for more job-specific learning or company-wide learning that was industry-specific. Whatever you choose to do as a leader and whatever you're authorized to do if you're reporting to a higher authority, the key is to really implement an active focus on learning. When you do that and when you create that environment of constantly learning and really generating curiosity and answering questions that maybe no one's ready to answer just yet, maybe you haven't even thought about them yet, but that's where innovation comes from. That's where ideas come from. That's where brainstorming comes from. It comes from learning and adopting new ideas. Question number 3. What is one tip for effective delegation? Now, this is tricky because there's a lot to delegating effectively. So you heard a lot of great tips, about delegating effectively, I will add one more for you to consider. That is to understand deeply the strengths and the contributions of all of your team members, so that when it's time for you to look at something, whether it's a task or a project, whatever it may be, you can think, okay, who is the best person to tackle this project? Who would be effective at getting it done, but also who would enjoy it the most? What's their zone, their jam, whatever the word is of the day? What would they be really good at? When you know your team members really well, you're going to know, okay, this can go here. This can go to Susan. This can go to Robert. This can go to Alejandro, whatever it may be, whoever it may be. You'll understand better rather than just dumping it off on whoever has the most time, which leads into another important part of delegation is making sure that you're communicating with your team members so that you know who has the availability and the interest to focus on helping getting that project done. There's a lot more to delegation, but there's a couple of tips for you to think about, and that's really to understand how and who to delegate to. Question number 4. Now, this is an interesting one because it takes a lot of discussion to really understand how do we communicate effectively the values, the vision, the mission, and the purpose of your company or your team within the company. One of the greatest tips that I've ever heard that I share with many clients, and I'm sharing it with you right now, make sure that you help all of the individuals throughout the company or your department understand what those principles look like in their specific role. So let's say, for example, that you're an accountant and you're not quite sure how the purpose of providing excellent customer service would apply to you because you're not in the customer service department. You're in the accounting department. You just manage the money. Not necessarily. You're involved with the money, yes, but where does that money come from? It comes from your customers. If there's ever a question or a billing dispute, how are you interacting with that customer? You too are in a customer service role. So when you're looking at the values of the company, maybe it's high integrity, which is not one of my favorites, but I will explain why very briefly. I think integrity is too broad. I think it needs to be more specific than just saying we have integrity. What does that really mean? Because that's such a broadly defined term. I don't think that's the best term to use when trying to identify values. But the point behind all of this is to help each individual deeply ingrain the vision, the mission, the values, and the purpose into what they do. And that will help them understand how to make good decisions. They'll be thinking to themselves, okay, if I do it this way, does that align with the values of the company? Or if I do it this way, is that a better alignment? That way you're servicing the company and the members of the team and your clients with equal and appropriate attention by simply ingraining all of those elements deeply into your application. And that's your job as the leader, is to help make sure that all of the people on the team understand those principles and know how to apply them. And communication is so important to do that. So it can't just be a quick little discussion. You've got to really help them understand that. And again, that's on you, the leader. All right, the last question that I always ask, I leave it up to the guest to decide if they want to share a baseball story, which is my hope is that they will do that, or something about their first job that they really learned or that they enjoyed about their very first job. And I love hearing responses to both because I think it's fascinating to hear what I like to call the origin story of work. Your first job, what was it that you liked or didn't like about that first job? But of course, I'm a fun-loving guy, and as many of you know from behind me here, I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. I love football too. It's a close second, but baseball wins the day. And that for me is why I like to focus on baseball, and I love to hear baseball stories. But here's one of my takeaways from this last year and probably from some previous seasons as well. What's interesting is how many times a baseball event or an experience turned into a personal relationship for that person. There are baseball stories of children going with their dad or their parents. I remember one story of a single mom who took her kids to a baseball game. Nothing fancy about the game, nothing fancy about the team, but it was meaningful because it was a time for them to connect. And you can imagine as a single mom trying to support her family and her kids, that can be a challenge. And she used baseball and a baseball game as a way to do that. There are lots of other really cool baseball stories. I'll let you go back and review those if you choose. But really, the message that I would send regarding baseball stories is simply this: enjoy it, enjoy life, find the fun in everything that you do. Well, folks, that's it for this episode. I do want to take a quick moment, since we're at the end of the season and the end of the calendar year. I want to, first of all, thank my wonderful team. I have two wonderful people that help me with the podcast, Joel and Anna, and they are phenomenal. I am the lucky guy. I get to interview the people. They do the tough work of making me look good and making the guests look good and organizing everything so that we can provide this podcast to you. We don't charge for it, obviously. We just want to share the information and bring on excellent guests from all over the world. And Joel and Anna, thank you so much for your hard work in making this an exceptional podcast experience for the guest and for all of those who are following, listening, or watching. So thank you very much. And of course, I have to thank all of you who are watching or listening to the podcast, those who are following it. I encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe or follow the podcast regularly. We release an episode about every week, about every Thursday here in the States. And I encourage you to check in. They're about 15 minutes, and you're going to learn some great things. Looking ahead to season 7, got some new questions that we'll be asking, of course, and they're really going to be insightful. I'm already confident that the leaders that come on to share their experiences and their insights are going to provide some absolutely fantastic information for all leaders at all levels to up their game a little bit in the leadership realm and the leadership role that you have. Well, everyone, thank you so much. It's always a wonderful time of year. Happy holidays to all of you. And I wish you a very, very successful and safe holiday season, as well as our new year ahead, 2026. For some of you, may already be in 2026 when you listen to this episode. But either way, Happy New Year, and let's make 2026 the best year ever. Find something big that you want to accomplish and go do it. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. Have a great day. This is Shawn Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.